Go and find her for me.
The rain hammered against the windows of the penthouse, sweet like bullets against bulletproof glass. Park Jin-woo stood motionless, his 70 years weighing heavy on shoulders that had carried the burden of Seoul's underworld for half a century. His silver hair, slicked back perfectly despite the late hour, caught the city lights bleeding through the storm. Behind him, 6 men stood in absolute silence, their expensive suits unable to hide the tension crackling through the room. If you don't find her for me, you will all die. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Jin-woo hadn't raised his voice, he never needed to. In his world, whispers carried more weight than screams. His reflection in the window showed a face carved from granite, but his eyes betrayed something his men had never seen before: desperation. In the bedroom down the hall, his son Tae-hyun lay motionless, staring at the ceiling. 20 years old, heir to an empire built on fear and blood money, and he hadn't spoken in 3 days. Hadn't eaten. Barely breathed, it seemed. The doctors Jin-woo had summoned, the best money could buy, men who knew better than to ask questions, had found nothing physically wrong. But Jin-woo knew better. This wasn't an illness medicine could cure. This was heartbreak. Boss, Choi Min-yi, his most trusted lieutenant, stepped forward. We've been searching for 48 hours. The woman, Sofia, she disappeared completely. No flight records, no credit card transactions, nothing. Jin-woo turned slowly, his movements deliberate. Then you're not looking hard enough. With respect, we've checked every. Respect? Jin-woo's voice dropped to a lethal whisper. You want to speak to me about respect while my son wastes away, while the only child I have left is dying from the inside out. The room grew colder. Every man present knew about Sun-hee, Jin-woo's daughter, taken by a rival gang 20 years ago. Her body had never been found. Tae-hyun was all that remained of Jin-woo's legacy, and the old boss would burn Seoul to the ground before losing another child. Tell me everything again, Jin-woo commanded. From the beginning. Min-yi exchanged glances with his colleagues before speaking. 3 weeks ago, young master Tae-hyun met her at the Gangnam Arts Festival. Sofia Akafer, 24 years old, from Lagos, Nigeria. She was in Seoul on a 6-month cultural exchange program, working as a contemporary dance instructor. They met when he stopped to watch her performance in the street. Jin-woo closed his eyes, remembering his son's face when he'd first mentioned her. For the first time in Tae-hyun's life, his eyes had held something other than the hollow acceptance of his predetermined future. They had held light. She didn't know who he was, Min-yi continued. The young master made sure of it. He used a different name, told her he was a university student studying music. For 3 weeks, they were inseparable. He took her to places in Seoul even we didn't know he knew. Small cafes in Hongdae, secret gardens in Bukshan, late-night food stalls in Itaewon. He was different with her. Different how? Jin-woo asked, though he knew the answer. Happy boss, he was happy. The word struck Jin-woo like a physical blow. Happy. A luxury he'd never been able to give his son, not with the life they led, the empire Tae-hyun had been born into without choice. Jin-woo had given him wealth, power, protection, everything except happiness. What happened 3 days ago? Min-yi's jaw tightened. Kim Sang-woo happened. The name made Jin-woo's hands curl into fists. Kim Sang-woo, underboss of the rival Busan faction, a man whose ambitions exceeded his intelligence. A man with a talent for being in the wrong place at precisely the wrong time. He saw them together at a restaurant in Apgujeong, recognized the young master immediately. He approached their table, made comments about Sofia, called her things I won't repeat. The young master tried to keep his cover, tried to just leave, but Kim kept pushing. He grabbed Sofia's arm. And Tae-hyun broke 3 of Kim's fingers and his jaw before our security team could intervene. It was spectacular, boss, but it exposed everything. Sofia saw who he really was, or at least she saw enough. When she looked at him, she wasn't seeing the music student anymore. She was seeing us. She was seeing you. Jin-woo walked to the bar and poured himself a whiskey, the amber liquid catching the light. He didn't drink it. What did she say? According to our people who were there, nothing at first. She just stared at him. Then she asked if anything he'd told her was true. He tried to explain, but Kim's men were arriving and ours were arriving and it was chaos. In the confusion, she ran. And you lost her. The accusation hung heavy, Minyi's face flushed with shame. She went back to her apartment, packed a single bag and vanished. Her program coordinator said she called and quit. No explanation. We tracked her to Incheon Airport, but after that the trail goes cold. No flight manifest has her name. Nothing. Jinwoo drained his whiskey in one swallow. She used a different name. We thought so too, but... She's smart, Jinwoo interrupted. Smart enough to make my son fall in love with her in 3 weeks. Smart enough to disappear from men who have spent their lives finding people who don't want to be found. That doesn't make me angry. That makes me impressed. He set the glass down with a sharp click. It also makes her exactly the kind of woman my son should have. The men looked at each other, uncertainty crossing their faces. In their world, women were either family to be protected or assets to be acquired. The idea of their boss hunting down a woman for his son's heartache was unprecedented. I'm 70 years old, Jinwoo said quietly, turning back to the window. I've killed men, I've ordered deaths, I've built an empire on the bones of my enemies. I've done terrible things to survive, to thrive, to ensure my family's place in this world. I've given my son everything except a choice. He paused, his reflection overlaid with the glittering Seoul skyline. She gave him that. For 3 weeks she gave him the choice to be someone else, to be happy, and I'll be damned if I let that slip away. He turned to face his men, and they saw something that terrified them more than his anger. Determination laced with paternal love, a combination that could topple governments. Find her, Jinwoo said. I don't care if she's in Lagos, London, or on the moon. Use every contact, every favor owed, every resource we have. But understand this, when you find her, you don't bring her back in handcuffs, you don't threaten her, you don't scare her. His voice dropped to something almost gentle. You tell her that a father is begging her to give his son one chance to explain, one conversation, if after that she wants to leave. I will personally ensure she has enough money to disappear so thoroughly that even God couldn't find her. And if she still refuses, one of the younger men, Lee Dong-hyuk, asked before he could stop himself. Jinwoo's smile was sad. Then my son will learn what I learned long ago, that sometimes the people we love leave and all the power in the world can't bring them back. He moved toward the door, then paused. But I'm not giving up without trying everything. 48 hours ago, I gave you an order as your boss. Now I'm asking as a father. Find her, please. The word please from Park Jinwoo's mouth was so shocking that it took a moment for the men to react. Then they bowed deeply, a gesture of respect and commitment. As they filed out, Minyi lingered. Boss, there's something else. When we checked her apartment after she left, she'd written something on the bathroom mirror in lipstick. Just 3 words. What words? I'm sorry too. Jinwoo closed his eyes. Sorry. She was sorry. That meant she hadn't just been frightened away, she'd felt something too. The realization gave him hope and broke his heart simultaneously. He walked down the hall to his son's room and opened the door without knocking. Tae-hyun hadn't moved, still staring at the ceiling as if the answers to the universe were written there. I'm going to find her, Jinwoo said softly. For the first time in 3 days, Tae-hyun spoke, his voice hoarse and hollow. Why? So you can threaten her into coming back, so you can add her to your collection of things you control. The words cut deeper than any knife. Is that what you think of me? Tae-hyun finally turned his head, and Jinwoo saw his own eyes staring back at him, dark, tired, and infinitely sad. I think you're a man who's forgotten that some things can't be taken, bought, or forced. They can only be given freely, and I took that from her. I lied to her. I made her think I was someone I'm not. Were you lying? Jinwoo moved closer. When you were with her, being that music student, laughing in those cafes, was that a lie? Tae-hyun's eyes filled with tears. It was the only true thing I've ever been. Jinwoo sat on the edge of the bed, something he hadn't done since Tae-hyun was a child afraid of monsters under the bed. If only he'd known that the real monster was the legacy he was passing down. Then that's what we'll tell her, Jinwoo said. I'll find her and you'll tell her the truth, all of it. Who you are, who I am, what this life means. And then you'll ask her, not order her, not manipulate her, but genuinely ask her if there's any chance she can see past the lie to the truth underneath. And if she says no. Jinwoo's hand trembled slightly as he placed it on his son's shoulder. Then I'll have one of my men teach you how to disappear too. If you want to walk away from all this, from me, from the family business, I won't stop you. Not anymore. Tae-hyun sat up slowly, disbelief written across his face. You don't mean that. I've lost one child to this life. I won't lose another, even if keeping you means letting you go. Jinwoo stood, suddenly feeling every one of his 70 years. Your mother used to say I confused love with possession. Maybe she was right. But I'm learning, son. It's late and I'm old, but I'm learning. He walked to the door, then stopped. Sofia Akafer, tell me about her. Not the facts in the reports, tell me who she is. For the first time since Sofia had left, a ghost of a smile touched Tae-hyun's lips. She laughs like music, Dad. Real music, not the manufactured kind. And when she dances, it's like watching someone speak in a language everyone should understand but nobody remembers. She's brilliant, speaks 4 languages, has degrees in both dance and international relations. But more than that, she's kind. Not naive kind, but deliberately kind, like she's seen enough darkness to recognize light when she finds it. Jinwoo listened, memorizing every word. She sounds worthy of you. No, Tae-hyun said softly. I'm not worthy of her, but I'd like the chance to try to become someone who is. In that moment, Park Jinwoo made a decision. He would find Sofia Akafer, and he would make this right, not through force or fear, but through honesty. Even if it meant confronting truths about himself he'd spent a lifetime avoiding. As he left his son's room, he pulled out his phone and made a call. Assemble everyone. Every operative, every contact, every person who owes us a favor from Seoul to Sao Paulo. This isn't a manhunt, it's a rescue mission. We're bringing home the woman my son loves, or we're giving her the means to live free of us forever. Either way, we end this with honor. Outside, the storm had intensified, rain lashing the windows with renewed fury. But inside, something had shifted. The hunter had become the supplicant, the king had become the beggar, and a father had finally understood that sometimes the greatest power was knowing when to kneel. Somewhere in the world, Sofia Akafer was running, carrying a broken heart and 1,000 unanswered questions. She didn't know it yet, but 6,000 miles away, the most dangerous man in Seoul had decided to find her, not as a gangster, but as a father desperately trying to save his son's soul. The game had changed. Now it was time to see if love could triumph where power had always prevailed. The red dust of Enugu, Nigeria, clung to Sofia's sandals as she navigated the crowded market, her head wrapped in a vibrant Ankara print her grandmother had given her years ago. 3 weeks since Seoul. 3 weeks since she'd run from the only man who'd ever made her believe in fairy tales, only to discover he was living in a nightmare she wanted no part of. Sofia Akafer. She turned to see her cousin Kioma waving frantically from the fabric stall, her round face creased with concern. Sofia forced a smile and made her way through the press of bodies, the familiar chaos of home both comforting and suffocating. You look terrible, Kioma said bluntly, pulling Sofia into the shade of the stall's canopy. Still not sleeping. I sleep enough. The lie tasted bitter. Every time Sofia closed her eyes, she saw Tae-hyun's face, not the cold, violent stranger who'd broken a man's fingers without flinching, but the gentle music student who'd learned to say, I love you in Igbo just to surprise her. A H letter 1E, 5 R letter 1E, 5 M G letter 1E, CB, Enanya. The words still echoed in her memory like a song she couldn't forget. Mama says you should come for dinner tonight. She's making oaf en sala, your favorite. Sofia shook her head. Tell her I'm fine, I just need. Space, yes, we know, you've needed space for 3 weeks. Kioma gripped her hand. Whatever happened in Seoul, you can't run from it forever. This is Nigeria, not Korea. Here, family means something. We take care of each other. The irony wasn't lost on Sofia. Family. That's exactly what she'd stumbled into in Seoul, a family bound not by love but by blood and violence. She'd done her research after fleeing. Park Jinwoo wasn't just some businessman. He was a legend in Korea's underworld, a man whose name was whispered with equal parts reverence and terror. And Tae-hyun, her sweet, sad Tae-hyun who'd quoted poetry and played guitar under the stars, was his heir. "I'll come tomorrow," Sofia promised, though she had no intention of keeping it. Tomorrow she'd be on a flight to Accra, and from there to London. She had enough saved for a fresh start, a new city where Korean gangsters and broken hearts couldn't find her. Kioma studied her with knowing eyes. "You're running again." "I'm surviving." "There's a difference between surviving and living, cousin." Before Sofia could respond, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She'd changed her SIM card twice since leaving Seoul, given her new number to only 5 people. Her thumb hovered over the decline button, but something made her answer. "Miss Akaffer?" The voice was male, accented English professional. "My name is James Okonkwo. I'm an attorney with the Lagos office of Park International Holdings. I need to speak with you about an urgent matter." Sofia's blood turned to ice. She ended the call immediately and powered off her phone, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped it. "Sofia, what's wrong?" Kioma reached for her, but Sofia was already moving, pushing through the market crowd with barely controlled panic. They'd found her. Somehow, impossibly, they'd found her. She made it 3 blocks before a black Mercedes pulled alongside her, the tinted window rolling down to reveal a Nigerian man in an expensive suit. But it wasn't the attorney who'd called. This man was younger, harder, with eyes that had seen things Sofia didn't want to imagine. "Miss Akaffer," he said in perfect Igbo, "please don't run, I'm not here to hurt you." "Then what do you want?" Sofia's voice came out steadier than she felt. 5 minutes of your time, that's all. After that, if you want to disappear, I'll help you do it so thoroughly that even we couldn't find you again. The offer was too strange to be a threat. Against every instinct screaming at her to run, Sofia stopped walking. 5 minutes. The man gestured to the car. "Somewhere more private." "Right here is fine." A flicker of respect crossed his face. "Smart, my name is Minyi. I work for Park Jinwoo." He paused, letting the name settle between them like a stone in still water. 3 days after you left Seoul, his son stopped eating, stopped speaking, stopped living. Mr. Park sent his entire organization to find you, not to threaten you, not to hurt you, to deliver a message. Sofia crossed her arms, fighting the ache in her chest at the mention of Tae-hyun. "What message?" Minyi pulled out a tablet and pressed play. The screen showed Tae-hyun, thinner than she remembered, sitting in what looked like a hospital room. His eyes found the camera, and Sofia's breath caught. "Sofia," his voice was hoarse, broken, "I know you have every reason to hate me. I lied to you about who I was, what my life is. But everything I felt, everything we had, that was real. The happiest I've ever been was pretending to be someone who deserved you." He paused, composing himself. "My father has offered me a choice. I can walk away from all of this, the family, the business, everything. Start over somewhere new, with nothing but my name and a chance to be the person you thought I was. But I can't make that choice until I see you one more time. Until I look you in the eye and tell you everything I should have said from the beginning." The video ended. Sofia realized she was crying. "Mr. Park is 70 years old," Minyi continued quietly. "He's built his life on power and control, but he's willing to give up his only heir, his entire legacy, if it means his son has a chance at happiness. He asked me to tell you that he understands if you can never forgive the deception. He understands if you want nothing to do with his family. But he's begging, his word, not mine, begging for one conversation. After that, whatever you decide, he'll respect." Sofia wiped her eyes roughly. "And if I say no, if I tell you to leave me alone?" Minyi reached into his jacket slowly, making sure she could see, and pulled out an envelope. "Then this contains a bank account number with enough money to start over anywhere in the world. New identity, new documents, everything you need." Mr. Park said, and I quote, "Even if she never speaks to my son again, she gave him 3 weeks of happiness. That's worth more than all the money I've made in 70 years. The envelope felt impossibly heavy in Sofia's hands. She'd expected threats, intimidation, the kind of pressure she'd seen in movies about men like Park Jinwoo. Instead, she was being offered freedom and a choice. "Why?" she whispered. Why go through all this? Because his son is dying, Minyi said simply. Not physically, but in every way that matters. And because Mr. Park realizes that some things, love, happiness, hope, can't be taken by force. They can only be given freely. He paused. He also said that his daughter was taken from him 20 years ago, and he's spent every day since wishing he'd told her he loved her more often. He won't make that mistake with his son. Sofia looked at the envelope, then at Minyi. Then at the dust-covered street where she'd been planning her next escape. She thought about Tae-hyun's laugh, the way he'd held her hand while they watched the sunset from Namsan Tower, the gentleness in his eyes when he thought she wasn't looking. She thought about the violence she'd witnessed, the man with broken fingers, the cold reality of what loving him would mean. One conversation, she heard herself say. That's all I'm promising. Minyi's relief was visible. That's all we're asking. There's a private flight waiting at Lagos Airport. You'll be in Seoul in 14 hours and back in Nigeria within 24 if that's what you choose. You have my word, and more importantly, you have Park Jin-woo's word that no harm will come to you. The word of a gangster, Sofia said bitterly. The word of a father, Minyi corrected. There's a difference. 14 hours later, Sofia stood in the lobby of a private medical facility in Gangnam, her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd refused the designer clothes they'd offered, refused the makeup artist, refused everything except the truth. If she was going to do this, she'd do it as herself, not some polished version meant to fit into their world. The door opened and Park Jin-woo himself stepped out. He was smaller than she'd imagined, this man whose name commanded fear. Older, more tired, more human. He bowed deeply, a gesture of profound respect in Korean culture, and when he straightened, his eyes held only sincerity. Miss Aakafer, thank you for coming. I know what this courage costs you. Sofia's prepared speech died in her throat. She'd expected arrogance, entitlement, the bearing of a man used to getting what he wanted. Instead, she saw a father terrified of losing his son. He's inside, Jin-woo continued. I won't join you, this conversation is between the two of you, but before you go in, I want you to know something. He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. I've spent my life in darkness. I've done things I can never atone for, hurt people I can never apologize to. I built an empire on suffering, and I told myself it was worth it, that I was protecting my family, securing our future. But I was wrong. The only thing I've succeeded in doing is ensuring my son inherited my sins without any of the choices. He pulled out a thick envelope, different from the one Minyi had offered. This contains legal documents. If Tae-hyun chooses to walk away from my organization, these papers make it official. He'll be legally separated from my business holdings, protected from retaliation, free to live whatever life he chooses. I had my attorneys draw them up the day after you left. Sofia took the envelope with trembling hands. You'd really let him go. I'd rather lose him to happiness than keep him in misery. Jin-woo's voice cracked slightly. My daughter taught me that love means wanting what's best for someone, even when it breaks your heart. I learned that lesson too late to save her. I won't make the same mistake with my son. He gestured to the door. He's waiting. Whatever you decide, Miss Aakafer, thank you for giving an old man hope that redemption is still possible. Sofia watched him walk away, this feared crime boss who moved like he carried the weight of the world. Then she turned to the door, placed her hand on the handle, and pushed it open. Tae-hyun stood by the window, backlit by the Seoul skyline he'd shown her from a dozen different angles during their 3 perfect weeks. He turned when he heard her enter, and the naked hope and fear on his face nearly broke her. You came, he whispered. I came, she confirmed, staying near the door, maintaining distance. Talk, you have one chance to make me understand. He nodded, swallowing hard. My real name is Park Tae-hyun. I'm 20 years old, and I've never made a single choice about my own life until the day I saw you dancing in the street and decided to lie about who I was. His hands clenched at his sides. I was born into this. My grandfather built the organization, my father expanded it, and I was raised to inherit it. I've been trained since childhood to take over, business management, strategy, even how to hurt people if necessary. But I've never wanted any of it. Then why not leave? Sofia demanded. Why continue? Because my sister disappeared when I was a baby, taken by rival gang members and never seen again. My father's been searching for 20 years and it destroyed him. I stayed because I thought if I could be the son he needed, fill the void she left, maybe he'd stop hurting. Tae-hyun's voice broke. I stayed because I was afraid and guilty and trapped, until I met you. He took a tentative step closer. When I was with you, I wasn't Park Jin-woo's heir. I wasn't a criminal legacy or a business asset. I was just Tae-hyun, a guy who loved music and terrible American movies and the way you laughed at my broken English. For 3 weeks, I got to be the person I always wanted to be. And it was real, Sofia. Every word I said to you, every feeling I had, that was the truest I've ever been. Sofia felt tears streaming down her face. But you lied. You made me fall in love with someone who doesn't exist. He does exist. Tae-hyun moved closer, his own eyes wet. He exists in every moment I was with you. He exists in this choice I'm making right now, choosing you over everything I've ever known. My father drew up papers. I can walk away. We can leave Korea, go anywhere you want, and I'll spend the rest of my life being the man you thought I was. And resent me for it. Sofia shook her head. Resent me for making you give up your family, your father, your entire identity. I'd resent myself more for letting you go. He stopped an arm's length away, close enough that she could see the desperation in his eyes. I'm not asking you to join my world, Sofia. I'm asking permission to join yours. I'm asking for a chance, maybe not now, maybe not for a long time, but someday, to prove that the man you fell in love with wasn't a lie. He was just me, finally being honest for the first time in my life. The room fell silent except for their breathing. Outside, Seoul glittered with a million lights, each one a life being lived, a choice being made, a heart being broken or mended. Sofia looked at this boy, because despite everything, he was still so young, who'd been born into violence and chose vulnerability instead. She thought about her grandmother's words. The bravest thing you can do is choose love in a world that teaches you to fear it. I can't promise you anything, she said finally. I can't promise I'll stay, or that I can ever fully trust you again, or that this won't end in more heartbreak. I know. But, she took a shaking breath, I came back, that has to mean something. Hope bloomed across Tae-hyun's face like sunrise. It means everything. I want to know everything. The truth about your family, your life. What walking away would really mean. No more secrets. No more secrets, he agreed. I'll tell you everything, show you everything, and then you'll decide. Sofia nodded slowly. Behind her, the door opened quietly. Park Jin-woo stood in the hallway, and when his eyes met Sofia's, she saw gratitude so profound it was almost painful to witness. Miss Okafor, he said quietly, whatever you decide, you've already given my son something I never could hope. For that, you have my eternal thanks. As Sofia left the medical facility an hour later, her mind spinning with revelations and possibilities, Min-yi approached with a gentle smile. Will you stay? He asked. Sofia looked back at the building, where Tae-hyun stood at the window watching her, his hand pressed against the glass. She thought about safety and danger, logic and love, fear and faith. I'll stay, she said. For now, we'll see about tomorrow. Min-yi bowed. Sometimes now is all we get, and sometimes it's enough. As Sofia climbed into the car that would take her to a hotel, neutral territory, her choice, her terms, she pulled out her phone and typed a message to Kioma. I'm okay. I found something worth being scared for. We'll call soon. Love you. In his penthouse, Park Jin-woo poured himself a whiskey and allowed himself to cry for the first time in decades. Tears of relief, of hope, of a father who'd finally learned that the greatest power was knowing when to surrender. And in that medical room, Tae-hyun finally slept, dreaming not of the empire he was born to inherit, but of a simple life with a woman who taught him that sometimes the greatest courage was choosing to be vulnerable in a world that rewarded strength. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning, messy, uncertain, and more real than any fairy tale. But in a city of millions, two hearts had found each other across impossible odds, and sometimes, against all logic, that was enough.